to the Cecil County Council Work Session meeting of May 28, 2013. All council members are present. We have a quorum, and I'm calling the meeting to order. The first item on our agenda is approval of meeting minutes for May 21 of 2013 for our regularly scheduled council workshop meeting. The meeting minutes have been distributed to the council members in advance. Are there any corrections or additions to the meeting minutes as presented?
I move that the minutes be approved as presented.
Been a motion to approve the meetings as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? There's been a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes for the May 21 council work session meeting. And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The second item on our agenda is a post-budget process analysis. For the first time ever in Cecil County, the county council and the county executive worked through a budget process, and we came to a conclusion on the evening of May 21st. And I've asked for this agenda item to be put on our agenda so that we, the council, can make some comments about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the process, and to try to prevent any of the bad and the ugly to happen again. If there's anything that we can do to manage the process better, more efficiently, more effectively, to come to a good conclusion in subsequent years. And I'll open the floor to any council member that would like to offer up any ideas on how we, the council, or how we can recommend to the executive's office to change things out a little bit to make it a better process.
I think part of the confusion was what do we adopt first?
Okay, I would agree, and I have to say that I thought we had that worked out in advance, and at the last minute there was a change that I didn't approve myself. And unfortunately, I think that once we decide, and I think that is, I think we do need to approve the capital budget and the enterprise budgets first before we finalize the general budget, and the tax rate. Tax rate will come last. Does anyone have a difference of opinion? And Mr. Winston Robinson, you apparently had some input on why you felt.
Right. I unfortunately forgot to bring the copy of the charter. The charter talks about 4 documents. One is the current operating expense, one is the capital, and one is
But it doesn't specifically give any order on which one gets done first.
Actually, it says the current expense, the current revenue, the capital budget, and the CIP. The capital expense budget includes both the enterprise funds, any special revenue funds, along with the general fund. And in that same vein, the capital budget, as interpreted here, is construed to be the current year's budget, and the capital improvement program is the multi-year projection. That normally is what those terms mean. The current revenue budget actually is the one that's presented by the county executive. We included in the ordinance this year 3 tables which were the supporting information as proposed, and then we also provided the CIP as proposed. What I think on Thursday, when the council met and had a work session and went through what the budget was and voted through a list of, I forget, 19 or so, I think, I think at that point, we ended up with a printed report which was intended to be Exhibit B and Exhibit D. Those could be changed by council on the floor, as they were in fact. But my suggestion would be the use of the concept that this is introduced, you are then considering the current expense budget as a total, with the appendix being the listing of all the departments that are being voted on for the current budget. I think it was confusing to some in that because of the prior changes, they weren't sure where they were, and it may have been preferable to go over the fact that versus having to vote on every one of 8 or whatever it was amendments, that the amendments are incorporated in one document that is 3 pages long. And since council had worked through the fact that they did want them or not, that they now had one document that was compact and consisted of them all.
Okay, right. Let's go back. You got a sidetrack because we're talking about the order of how we're going to approve the budget. And the budget was broken down into, I believe, 4 components, or 5 components, because we should have never put the landfill fee schedule and the wastewater fee schedule on the same ordinance or bill. It should have been separate, the resolution. The landfill is a separate enterprise fund. It should have been separately from the wastewater. That's first off. Next year, don't combine, keep them separate. The second thing is, which one should be offered up first? The enterprise funds or the capital improvement budget?
Well, the enterprise funds and the general fund and the special revenue funds are part of the current expense budget.
We realize that they're all tied together. There's no
Right.
doubt about it. There's interactive.
Okay.
They're all tied together, but we have to do one and then the other and then the other.
Right.
And so, each one, if you amend one, it also amends the others. So I'm thinking to myself that the enterprise funds would come first, and then the capital improvement budget, and then the operating budget, and then the rate.
Well, what I'm saying though is the operating budget you're speaking of and the enterprise fund budgets are one. They are the expense budget. It's the current expense budget. That has a force of law. The other part that does is the capital budget. The capital improvement program is actually a 5-year projection, which I easily agree includes the capital budget. But the later 4 years are guidance and are implemented each year.
Understood.
You're saying you can't take the landfill and the wastewater enterprise funds out of the current expense budget because they are a part of the current expense budget. The charter says that we can't, let me see where it is. The council shall have no power to change the form of the budget as submitted by the executive or to alter revenue estimates except to correct mathematical errors. And that's, I think, what Winston is arguing. We can't change the way the budget's presented to us, and both the enterprise funds are included as part of the expense budget.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true because we did not approve the revenue budget that was proposed by the county executive.
Right. In the budget
We
message
reduced-
section 505, it talks about 4 sections being presented.
It's the form of the budget, though, that we can't change, how it's presented to us. We cannot change that. And if the county executive puts the enterprise funds in the expense budget, which Winston is saying that is required by state law.
Well, of the 4 areas that we have choices on, the enterprise funds are not part of the CIP, they're not part of the capital budget, and the revenue part of them is part of the current revenue budget. but the current expense part is part of the current expense budget as required under section 505.
For the benefit of the citizens, the benefit of the council members, each of the components should be broken out separately, so it's easier to understand and address, in my opinion.
We did that within the ordinance. Each fund is broken out in the appendices saying, this is all the expenditures related to the general fund. This is all the expenditures related to landfill, and all the expenditures related to water are specifically in there.
Mr. President, we've had some internal discussions on this, and what we'd like to do, and we've talked to Jason Allison and Mr. Massey also. What we'd like to do is come up with some template, taking into consideration what you just said, and nail it down, present it to you, to both you and the executive, so we have something to work from for next year, where there's an agreement on the process and the form of the actual motions that when we get to the adoption.
I'm willing to listen.
So that's, we're gonna go ahead and do that and present something to Mr. Massey and you and the council, after we review it with the executive. We're gonna start that next Monday, actually. There's a meeting to.
Do any of the other council members have any concerns or recommendations?
I do. I thought it was very difficult being the first time council person to hear all of the departments' presentations on each of their individual budgets and not discussing them shortly thereafter, if not the same day, then have a work session that same week so that we can review it. It's fresh in our minds, we can review it and we can make decisions then, rather than wait to the very end. Because if we're gonna make a cut at the very end, we would probably have made that cut right when we heard the budget presentation. And I just think that it would be, it certainly would be better for me.
I agree with you that we can have the discussion. I think it's dangerous to make decisions because we have not heard from the public. Remember, the public comment is last. We can certainly make a list of our concerns without making all the decisions. We certainly want to make the decision piecemeal in advance of public comment, in advance of seeing the overall impact.
Well, I think it would be interesting for the public to know what we're considering cutting, so that would be even better. Yes.
So the answer is to, after the presentations, is to have a few minutes to have a discussion and make a list of the possible options.
Yeah, I do think that if the work session is intended to be about 2 hours long, that you think about the presentation section as being about an hour and a half long. And then that gives you a half hour to both come up with what additional information you believe you need. In most instances, the departments will be here for the entire time, and if they need to provide something, they will be here if it's operational, and they're gonna be focusing it through Craig or myself on the way down. Also, the Citizens and Budget Advisory Committee can, after council has said its piece, can also perhaps at that point ask for information, additional things. It is in part the fact that it went for 10 weeks, and some of the questions, I'm sure, were lost that were from the first meeting, the second meeting. When things go that long, you tend to talk about the most recent events and not completely over time. It's not a level playing field.
There is a learning curve with whether it was the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee or the council members. I know that some of the questions asked were some of the same questions I asked 4 years ago or 5 years ago.
Right.
So it's unfortunate that we have such turnover in the council elected officials where they have to have this learning curve each and every cycle, and it creates a lot of uncertainty and new people learning about what is what and where's it coming from, where's the revenue source for this and so forth.
And part of what we can do is purposely assured that all the responses essentially come in PDF format so that they can be passed on, and to a certain extent, they can be archived by council so that future council people who do want to prep themselves can go through both the minutes of the work sessions along with the responses, so that they would have some idea. This is what happened in a session that included most of the admin departments or the sheriff's office.
Councilwoman, you both be adding to it.
Yeah, I had several other things, but the first thing is that when we made the cuts, for instance, the $250,000 to the school district, we just said, cut $250,000 out of your school budget. We had the ability to tell them what item to eliminate, and we did not. Now, maybe we chose not to do that, maybe we didn't, but that's something that we have the ability to do.
As I recollect, we chose not to.
Okay.
In many cases, we felt, or at least I felt, that they had more knowledge of their own budget, they know what their priorities were, and they would find, the lowest priority to cut. And so you're absolutely right. As council members, I think that we can find line items that if there's something there that we felt is not a priority, then we should say that. But in the absence of us finding and picking on one particular expense, ask them to use their best judgment.
Well, and my last item refers to the Budget Advisory Committee. I really appreciate the work that they did. I'm sure they're extremely frustrated that we did not approve.
We did, ultimately, we did, at the end.
Approve one or two of the
Three.
Okay,
Three or four, actually.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And, yeah, I spoke with, two of them and, encouraged them that happened.
Okay.
And they were very pleased to hear that their time wasn't wasted.
Right, because it did appear that their time was being wasted, but I felt that we need to give them not only more time, but better instruction because several of the things that they were recommending were mandated items.
Well, there were issues that, they were trying to get feedback, and as Winston said, some of the items might have been lost in the process, so, you know, they started off late this year too. I think we were operating under a much more, compressed timeline. So,
Well, the council will always get the budget March 1st, so our timeline's not gonna get any longer. The county executive's timeline will be longer. But she has to give us the budget on March 1st, so our timeline's not gonna get any longer. So that's why we have to really delve into it and deal with it immediately.
well, the Budget Advisory Committee can get started
Earlier.
And I appreciate that there is a sense of continuity on the advisory committee, that there are people, appointments that have been there, for three terms so far, for 3 years, and, having Mr. Feely on there was, really, he had a lot more insight into the details, and having that knowledge at hand for the advisory committee, I think was invaluable. I hope he serves again.
Councilwoman Brumel, do you have any other suggestions on how to improve the process this time?
Well, I don't wanna name the person, again, but I got some feedback about the rates, and he was very upset that he had just recently heard about the increase in the hookup fees, and that that information hadn't gotten out to the public, for, you know, the, business community to come out and rally. I did go to the Economic Development Commission, I was hoping that they would be responsive, their strategic plan certainly, you know, supported. But I'm just wondering, how can we be more effective to get this information out to the public and to the business community, for them to be more responsive and have input before it's too late?
Mr. McCarthy, do you have any comments?
I have actually 6 comments. Some of them have been touched on. If it were up to me, I would basically have the council meet within 1 to 3 days to discuss the respective departments' presentations, and the council might get an overall feel on the request for funds. That would be number 1. Number two, I would put the onus on the respective department heads to prioritize their spending needs from most necessary to least necessary or least important, provided that the budget had to be cut. Number three, they would basically identify these areas that could be trimmed in the event that we truly had to do it. Number four, I would like to see a specific enforceable line item veto. Number five, I would like to see capital spending clearly delineated and separated from their overall budgets as terms of the money spent. And number four, I think it would behoove us to allow more time for the citizens of the county to be able to review the budgets prior to us voting on them. So that when they came in here, they would have a very, very clear idea of exactly what's being done and exactly where money's being spent.
The council's budget you're talking about.
The council's, well, the budget that basically we think that we are going to approve. I mean, those people came in here with, one of the things that kind of upset me is I thought that we had a fairly good feel Thursday what was going to happen with the budget that was passed on Tuesday, and many things happened on Tuesday that caught me completely off guard. I think that the people should have, you know, at least one full week at least to basically ponder over what we're going to be the final budget. That's it.
Mr. Dunn?
I think that was a good point, and to that, the week before, we had 2 budget workshops. I think at that time, the council was asked to sort of put all their cards on the table and put all their amendments in writing. Now, again, I thought on Thursday I had a reasonable expectation of what would take place Tuesday, but I was surprised there was a number of last-minute amendments, the day of and even during the meeting, and I think it must have been very confusing to, especially the new members on the board who've never been through this process and traveled with the amendments and others as well, so.
That's a really good point. The last minute amendments really threw a wrench in the process that we were told early on, put our amendments in writing. And I really look like the bad guy, didn't I?
Well,
The amendments.
We went through several years at that Thursday meeting,
Yeah.
and then Tuesday, we ended up with a whole new batch, so. Anyway,
There really should be a deadline, in when those amendments, for consideration, so.
But
And
more
also give the
discussion.
public time, if they want to weigh in on some of these.
But if you're going to respond to the public, your chances are there will be amendments that come up that night. If you're going to listen to the public and do what they want.
Right.
But again, if the public is, what is the public? Is it the people who come to the meeting? Or is it people, every citizen that's registered to vote? And we don't hear from 90% of the people that are registered to vote.
Just making an observation.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not just the voters, it's all the citizens, whether they're registered to vote or not.
I think the budget process actually starts when you're running for office and the campaign promises you make. And you'll hear from the public well after you've adopted the budget, as I've been seeing.
It's a dangerous proposition, in my opinion, to put a deadline on amendments prior to passage, because I think there's always an opportunity to make it better before it's finally approved. Now, yes, I agree that this time out, we could have, should have done better earlier. And, we didn't do that, and I give Dinah Brummel a lot of credit for coming here in advance and having a list of the items that she wanted to have considered. The problem was that I felt that it seemed to be an all or nothing type of situation where she put something on the table, and if it wasn't adopted, then there wasn't any medium ground or compromise or any other in-between area that I felt that we didn't consider. It was either what she said or not, and I felt that we could have, some of the points she made were good, other than I felt that she went too far, and I wish that we could have met halfway or part of the way on some of the opportunities, and we didn't do that. So I'll take
I think if you go back in the audio, there were some things that you had proposed that I made a motion for and you didn't adopt. You said, oh, it's just a consideration. So I was willing, I didn't need to speak on my, I was willing to consider, other options as well. And it was on the table for consideration. And I also said the buyback, that, you know, I think we should be having a discussion, a further discussion on that.
Mr. Massey, do you have any thoughts on this process?
Well, one of the things that might help you from an organizational standpoint is to have a separate public hearing meeting for the public, possibly have it at an area high school auditorium so that there's no problem with a large crowd. And then that night you would only hear testimony from the citizens. So it would give you time. You might not need to limit their time, and they could present whatever they wanted to present. I know that on May 7th it was a very long agenda, as well as we weren't sure how many people would show up, so I thought that might be an advantage for you all.
I think that's a really good idea, and because of our geographical, layout, we may wanna have two different areas. A lot of times, there's some confusion, into the budget process. Not having to correct them, I think would be a good thing, and just having an area where they can go to where we are addressing their, proposals to clear up. It'd be an informational, lesson on the budget. I think that would work out well. Do they do that? I was asked you this, do they do that in Harford County, that they have?
Yes.
How
They
many
have
hearings
two.
do they have? Two? Oh.
They try to alternate between the east side and west side of counties. So each year they try to encourage different areas to come out.
Jim, at those meetings, does anyone on the council president, or any particular council person explain why something may not be able to be done?
No, they're strictly for the public to make comments.
I mean, if something is mandated, if it's out of our control, I think we should be telling people that.
Should be in the budget.
I agree with you 100%.
But what you can do is, like I was saying, is say, we're gonna direct you to a website that some of the, issues that are brought up tonight, we will address individually, so each of us can share our opinion. And also get out the information about what is mandated and realities about the budget process that we can't change.
This is just my observation. I don't appreciate basically the public getting up, making their statements to the council, and then we, within 15 or 20 minutes, have to make a decision. I think it'd be better to hear these people before we make the decisions.
Right.
Well, that's what he's proposing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't want to basically have these people get up and start screaming and hollering about the roof being no good and all that. And basically, we ought to basically digest and really put into place, into context, the whys, wherefores, what's good and bad about the budget. Not feel under the pressure to basically respond to one specific little group's opinion.
Maybe there should be two public hearings. One is early in the process, in general thinking of the executive's proposed budget, and the other is public hearing to have the public speak to our amendments to the budget.
But we're gonna have to I think we're gonna need a very concentrated effort, and it was concentrated this year, I'm not saying that it wasn't, but it's gonna even have to be more concentrated if we're gonna get the word out to the public in a timely manner and get this budget approved by the end of May.
Well, one of the things that I've mentioned is that I think that there should really be a prioritization inside each one of these groups as to what truly is most important and what's least important. So it's almost self-evident what needs to get whacked if we have to whack something.
I think that we've been there before. The departments make their presentation, and they tell you that they have cut everything to make
They
a cut.
possibly cut.
And there's nothing left for them to cut without, and this question has been asked before, over and over and over again.
Yeah.
No one is willing to step up and say that there's any fat. No one's willing to say that there's any excess. No one's willing to say that there's any waste. No one's willing to say that. And so.
Well, that brings us back to, we if we had a clearly specific line item veto, then we could make that.
We can do that.
We can do that.
We can do that, there's no
Our
doubt.
charter.
If you
Should
have
say that
specific,
specifically in the charter.
Yes.
okay, it doesn't matter if it says it's
No,
specific.
it
in
does
charter.
say it's specific.
If Alan,
I could say.
if Alan McCarthy doesn't want something in the budget, you say, I don't want this in the budget, and try to get the rest of the council members to go along with it.
And they cannot move around it.
They probably can wiggle around it in a way,
But
because
then that's not specific line item veto.
it is, okay, the practice is they can transfer within their own budget money back. But then,
It says, the charter says that after public hearing or hearings, the council may decrease or delete any items in the budget except those required by the laws of this state and provisions for debt service on obligations then outstanding or for estimated cash deficits.
The budget is presented on a by department level. So if you delete a line, you're deleting a department. You can diminish it, and the intent of council may be to diminish a supply item or professional fee.
okay, I disagree
Yeah,
also. I don't
too.
think that the budget is presented as a line item budget item. I mean, we said
Right.
2 hours, 2 hours of Scott Flanagan's budget with all the items in his budget. He didn't present us his budget, he presented us many different items in his budget.
But
Right,
when
but
they do,
the
when they.
presentation of the ordinance, which is the form that the county executive has presented in, is by department. Otherwise, we would end up having 4,000 to 6,000 different line items and trying to explain every one. The reason why it's organized within major departments in public works and their divisions, that type of thing, is the fact that it allows the ability for the presentation of what the department managerially has done, what they're operationally doing, and the budget is intended to be the financing resources they have available to get that done.
Okay, can I, just clarify that, if there was money left over on a project, they would have to come to us to reallocate to another project, the leftover money?
When you're speaking of project, there's a clause in here that speaks about capital projects, and part of the phrase is illegal because we cannot return bond funds to the general fund. But within that constraint, the answer is yes. If you have a $10 million project that comes in at 9.8 and there's $200,000 left over, the bond funds have to stay there. The grant funds, if there are any unused, expire. If there is any general fund operating pay-go, for instance, that is never transferred over, or it stays there, and council is told there are remaining funds, and here's where we are.
Okay, so the bond funds that are left over, do they come before council to approve reallocation?
They come before
Okay, that's
council
all I
as
wanted.
part of the CIP.
Okay, now, this is what I was trying to relay, that it's really important that we do delve into the details. I don't know how many times I've heard, they're the experts, we need to trust them. You sit down and read these, studies, you'll see there's a lot of holes in the studies, and I feel like, the study is actually designed for an end result. And you need to question, the justification for the higher increase in rates, hookup fees, and, solid waste. You know, the reason, once again, for the auditor is to check the numbers. And there is a lot of wiggle room, in how they can justify these funds. And, they're gonna come in and, like, President Hodge said, they've already got it justified. They have to have this money. It's our job to find out, is it really necessary? This is what we were hired to do. We need to make sure we have the resources to be effective and to get the right answers.
All right, are there any other suggestions on how to make the budget process go better next year?
I have one thing I wanted also to bring up about the format of the budget. I know that the council cannot direct the administration how to present the budget, but for the public, we tried to put all the bills and the text on the website. And we actually, I will admit, I had not realized that the various appendix from the budget bill, there were 4 of them that, you needed. And so in the future, I'm hoping that perhaps that will be a little more, for the public, it was very hard for them to understand the numbers because you basically gave them so many numbers. And so it was a little confusing, the text that we put on for the public, because they said, well, what is the request? And so perhaps we can look at simplifying it, at least for the public to look at, so that they understand. For instance, the capital projects, you had a page that we used that was very clear on which capital projects were being funded. And that would help, because we had to answer a lot of questions from the public about it.
And actually, that was part of the introduced. What we did was, the appendix, I don't have it here, but I believe it's Appendix A 1, 2, and 3 were the operating, and then C1 was the current year capital budget. And the intention was to make the capital one page, which we did. And the others we did by department, and then part of the supplying of information was there's half a foot worth of gory details for those who want to read that. But in fact, the reason why the proposed was kept as proposed was to try to overcome the issue of what's the proposed and what's the actual. In the end, the adopted ordinance has the appendix where it shows here is the proposed amount, here is the adopted amount. And until it's adopted, it's actually where council is in their deliberations. As part of the concern that was mentioned by at least 2 of council, if you did want to come to using this year's time frame, if you did want to come up with, as of the end of Thursday, here's where we ended up. We were able, within about 24 hours or so, to come up with the 3 pages related to the current budget and the 1 page that had been changed and related to the capital. It may have taken us another morning to validate what had been done, but we were essentially able to come back within 24 to 36 hours saying, this is where council ended up. If council would like to have, and I believe we supplied it to council at that point, but if council does want to have it as something which is posted and available for about a week between session A and session B, it would seem that would be something that we could do. I do think the concept of using amendments in writing is good, but I think that once you've considered here's what's going on, having the amendments, and I'm speaking in part to the one that went on for a page and a half, where it is delete this and insert this, delete this and insert this. We lost half the audience right there during that.
Yeah.
Which is the reason why my suggestion is that once you've accepted an amendment concept, that we actually use the revised document showing the impact of it, validating to you that it's in there, and you can vote on that and discuss where, okay, we've ended up from 8 million or something down to 8.8.
I know in Harford County they do the deletions and insertions and additions, but
and
I don't think that's necessary. And I would not repeat that again. But that goes back to my point you just said to me earlier this morning, that the council can't do line item changes.
Well, actually, we
didn't
say it earlier, but
to me, that was a line item change. To me,
Your justification
one of
for
those page and a half amendments was a line item change.
Your justification for having made a change is more than sufficient, but effectively, and what we've been trying to explain is that it's on a department level. That's how the budget was presented. You may make justification for having reduced the supply line item or something. That's wonderful, but the impact is on a departmental level.
Yeah.
I understand that.
And that's, that's what we're trying to explain.
What we did, for instance, is it worked out that the only item that was extensive through multiple departments was the sick pay buyback. So what we did do for our purposes is we actually did alter that line. So when it rolled up to the department and we used it as the adopted, we would be able to present, here's Department A, and here's the change, and here's the adopted, or the proposed adopted.
But in the future, I don't think that we have to get into that level of detail.
No, we don't.
We, the council, go through the amendment process, and we can just say, delete that. Right.
Well,
And then
actually-
internally, you can do all the accounting that you want to make it happen.
Anything though that is by department, that ordinance, that delete and insert, even though I talked about using sick buyback, each line was a department. That level of detail is what we do need. So that's what we use.
I realize you
You
need
need
that.
it, but the
You
public
need that
doesn't.
internally as the.
No, what I'm saying
Chief
is-
financial officer needs that level of detail.
But what I'm saying is that to represent that the change in the format as originally
We trust
presented
you.
by the county executive has been changed, we actually, were going to, if there were a lot of individual changes like that, we were gonna use a budget reduction account and just insert it with a zero balance at the beginning, so that when it was all done, the county executive could determine whether the legislative intent would dictate, or whether there would be a budget change transfer, to accommodate the dollars that had been reduced.
All right, let's move on to the Bay Cabinet agenda. A copy of the draft agenda has been supported by, a page in your packet, near the back page. I'm sorry? Give your agenda. The last page of your.
Minutes. If you look at this page, minutes.
Give your
I'm
agenda.
bringing these.
Give your agenda.
Here, I'll share it with you. Here you go.
All right, do any members of the council have any objections or recommendations for changes before we finalize the agenda for the Bay Cabinet meeting on May 30th?
I looked at the notes I took some notes the day that we discussed the meeting with the Bay Cabinet, and I think you've covered everything. Maybe with a little bit of different wording, but still, has covered it all.
Okay. If you hear no comments in the near future, the council manager and the county executive's office will finalize it.
The closing remarks, well, they're are they pre-prepared?
I doubt it.
Okay.
I think it depends on what happens,
I'm
how
wondering-
productive the meeting turns out.
Well, there is a gap of time between discussion and there might be, hopefully there'll be, another opportunity of the council if we wanted to, if there was something that we feel,
Okay, so you want closing remarks from the Bay Cabinet, the county executive, and possibly?
possibly the council.
All right.
Mr. President, the county executive has spoken to Chip McLeod, and he plans on making a presentation.
Is that on the agenda?
Yes,
It's
the
gonna
Bay
be,
Cabinet, 11:05.
yeah, it'll be after the Bay Cabinet presentation, that 20-minute presentation, PowerPoint presentation. And we'll get you the amended agenda.
Okay. Everyone okay with that?
Where does he show up on the agenda?
It's not,
He'll-
Gotcha.
yeah, he'll be
Right
there.
now.
it's not on there yet.
After Bay
After
Cabinet.
11:05 is the Bay Cabinet presentation, and then Chip McLeod will be before the discussion.
And he'll be going to the dam also.
And there's we wanted to ensure, are all the council members gonna ride the bus?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm wondering, I know Chip's gonna cover it, but the FERC relicensing,
He's gonna, yeah, actually, he's gonna discuss that at the dam. He's gonna get out, he's gonna go on a bus trip and say a few words at the dam about the FERC process and those types of things that relate specifically to the dam.
Did, anyone invite any other council peoples from other counties to this?
The county executive Craig has been invited. I don't believe any council members were invited.
No one
The
from
mayors.
county or anybody?
Yeah, the mayors, yeah, I believe so.
President's on.
Yeah, all the mayors.
what about, press? Have you followed up with, okay. And I was wondering too, the, funding for Clean Chesapeake Coalition, when is that gonna be addressed? I think they've done a really good job, have been very effective.
It was in the budget.
Was it?
There's, I know there's funding for the Rural Counties Coalition. I don't recall specifically if any funding was allocated for Clean Chesapeake. I'd have to check.
Where was the Rural County Coalition, funding?
It's in my special projects, I believe.
All right, the next item on the agenda, that Jim listed as encouragement of local hiring, but it's a lot more complicated than that. And this is my issue, and Jim, would you please put the name of the council member or the party that's bringing the item to the table on the agenda in the future? I asked to place this on the agenda. I've been watching with a lot of interest the construction that's been going on at the Cecil College Math and Engineering building. And I've seen the progression of contractors, vendors, and construction that's been happening there. And I'm very pleased to see the building is coming up out of the ground as we speak. But what I saw was trailers and toilets and containers and fences and soil erosion control and site contractors, concrete, and all kinds of associated work being done and products being provided, services being provided, and not one of them is related to any Cecil County company. Every part of that construction that I've seen is totally from out of town, out of the county, and I'm a little bit unhappy about it because we're spending millions of dollars. And quite frankly, in the fiscal year 14, we're going to spend more than $50 million that the county is going to spend on upgrades and building projects and so forth. And I would like to see some of that money being spent and returned to the county. So I'm proposing to put together some type of legislation to require general contractors of a certain size contract to put in a good faith effort to use local subcontractors, vendors, and employees on projects within the county. And I'd like to work with the executive office, the council members, Department of Public Works, and purchasing to put something together that's very reasonable and fair for general contractors that, again, all they have to show is effort, that they've tried to use local employees, vendors, and subcontractors in their work. Now, I realize that sometimes they have their preferred subcontractors and vendors because it's very specialized and their relationship is strong and they trust their work results. But on the other hand, I really believe strongly that we have some very competent vendors and subcontractors and suppliers here in the county that can do the job just as well, and in some cases, better and cheaper. And so if they're gonna do business in Cecil County, they should at least put in a good faith effort to search out those vendors, suppliers, subcontractors, and employees that would benefit from the spending that the county is gonna be doing. So I'd like to ask for the cooperation of, everyone to help me put together, some type of, ordinance for this to happen, unless, there's any objections to that.
I think we might have to, get more information. I know with the school community, they, have the state Board of Ed, if it's, a contractor that's on their list, they can get it cheaper. And sometimes they go off that list, but they have to pay more. I'm not sure if this is correct, but, somebody had said something about that, the county purchases their vehicles through Williams Chevrolet, whereas they could be getting them cheaper if they went through the state contract. I don't know if that is, hold on, I don't know if the county or the colleges have that same system. I think we might wanna get more feedback from the college, what parameters can we incentivize? And I know with the county, don't we have that if a local contractor comes in and he has the leeway of 15%, he can be 15%?
6%.
6%?
There's a local purchasing preference for
Okay.
local contractors, but there's some individual purchases. I'm talking about larger construction projects.
I don't see why we couldn't apply that same rule for local preference, and, but just to have a discussion first, I don't wanna put something in place and then have to clean up the mess later, let's get more.
That's why I'm here, to listen and to put on the table for discussion purposes, the framework that, and again, the framework is to require general contractors that will be doing business in Cecil County to use use a good faith effort to locate and use local subcontractors, vendors, and employees, okay? And certainly if they fail to put in a good faith effort, then there needs to be some type of penalty. But again, I feel strongly that if they put that good faith effort into trying to find local subcontractors, vendors, employees, they can actually save money. This is not mandatory, they have to just make that effort, they have to shop around. I don't think that the contractor that's doing the work at the Cecil College has even shopped around. He has not called any Cecil County businesses and said, how much is a roll-off container for my job here in Cecil County? Because I think they just dialed in the regular vendor that they have from Baltimore or Harford County and said, bring up a roll-off container. They've never shopped around, and I want
Did
them.
they win that contract? Did they already have, their price they put
Yeah,
together?
but wait, this does not have anything to do with the job at the Cecil College. That's a done deal. They have a contract. We're not gonna get into that business, okay?
No, I understand
It's
that, but
not,
I'm
it's
just saying.
not for retroactive, but for future projects. I want contractors to realize that they'll have an obligation to try a good faith effort to use Cecil County businesses and citizens.
And, okay, so you haven't really delineated how the good faith effort is to be made.
That's
Be
what-
written in the
That's-
contract.
No.
wouldn't
It would be actually, it'd be part of the bidding process.
Right.
In other words, they have to understand, when you bid on a job, there are parameters that you have to agree to when you bid on a job, okay? You have to provide insurance, you have to provide this, that, and the other thing, and this is another, requirement, that they would have to, when they bid, they understand that part of the cost of doing business in Cecil County is to put a good faith effort into using Cecil County services.
So you're just proposing that we explore what that good faith effort is?
Sure.
Okay, that's fine.
And putting the legislation together, I'm asking for the cooperation of, again, the council, the executive branch, the Department of Public Works and Purchasing to put something together.
Well, I'd like to get some feedback, because there's so many capital projects being done by the school and community college, that we find out the parameters that they have to operate under.
That would be a good thing, because I'm not sure that we can put this ordinance into a ordinance that the college or the, schools enter into. I'm not sure of that, but I'd certainly like to look into it, because their capital expenses exceed ours in some cases. And I think it would be a good practice for them to consider the same policy. But I'm not sure that we, the council, can mandate the schools have some similar policy in their contracts that we might. Is there any other comments, concerns? Do we have consensus to look into it further?
Mhm.
Any objection? All right, now set. Mr. Massey, do you have a report today?
Sure, beyond tomorrow's day cabinet.
Well, that's Thursday.
Next
Thursday.
Thursday.
Okay. The June 4th agenda is going to be fairly long. There are 2 rezoning cases, which will, I guess, your first rezoning with the new council, as well as there's floodplain legislation that they'll be explaining. In the afternoon, we've scheduled the Board of Health with Stephanie Garrity and the county executive. And then Councilwoman Brunel has asked for George Reinhoff, who's a home, do you want to speak about the ham radio operator?
Right. Yeah, he just, I met him at a, Eagle Scout ceremony, and he had mentioned, how they had been part of the backup at the old site for emergency systems, when they were located in the courthouse. Since then, I've spoken with, Director Ryan, and apparently we do have ham operations being overseen by Richard Brooks, Director Brooks. Is that correct?
Yeah, from what I understand, ham radio operators have been a component of the EOC historically, going back many years.
So, Mr. Remhoff had, I guess, had more hands-on in working with the director. Just would like to hear what he has to say. It's important to him.
This is a meeting that you're having with him.
He's gonna.
We've scheduled at 2:30 on June 4th.
Okay, I don't want you scheduling 2:30 meetings with anybody without the council's understanding what's going on, okay?
Okay.
Now,
We
if
also-
Dinah Brumel wants to meet with anybody, she can meet with anybody she wants at 2:30, any day that she chooses, but the council has to decide its own meetings.
Okay, I would propose that we have Mr. Remhoff come and speak about his concerns. Hold on.
Why
about
can't it
that-
be done at a work session?
Oh, no, I meant it to be for, it is, okay, I would like it to be for a work session.
In the morning,
Yes.
between 9 and whenever?
Yes.
Okay.
Was that for?
I don't have a problem with
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Then schedule any meetings you want during the work session.
Mr. Massey, did I miss something? When was he scheduled?
2:30.
He had asked to come speak in the afternoon.
Oh, is that when he's available?
Well, that's what he said.
We have the ribbon cutting at 2:30 that day, at the landfill.
No, that meeting was canceled.
Oh, that's, the ribbon cutting is canceled?
So
Then
we'll try to
go
get
ahead-
him.
Yeah, go ahead and call him back and see if he's available in the morning. If not, I'm pretty sure he's just talking about the network of ham operators across the counties that we could coordinate with, in case our other radio system should go down, that is available, but we have to nurture that, network to make it more effective.
It's my understanding that this has been going on for a long time, not new, and it's been in operation, and I'm not sure what new he's gonna bring to the table. But I'll be happy to listen to him if we wanna put him on the agenda for a work session meeting.
That's all I had.
Okay, council member items, Ms. Bowlesby, do you have anything?
Yeah, just 2 things. I gave out the council scholarship, to Travis Wiles from Upton High School, just 2 years at Cecil College, plus money set aside for books, dependent upon the number of credit hours the student takes. It's my understanding we give out one of these scholarships at every high school. And Travis was certainly thrilled and hopes to be a mechanical engineer. And today we went to the BPAC year in review awards type of recognition breakfast, which was very nice. The one thing that they pointed out was the money that was put into the Ames project at the middle schools, which helps the children determine the direction that they're going and helps prevent dropouts. And that's about it.
Yeah, Councilwoman Bowlesby, I was gonna speak to that as well. I've gotten a call from, the Providence School, Mr. Gerton, is the administrator over there. And, I'm happy that they're addressing this, that EPAC has identified this as one of the areas that needs to be addressed. And Mr. Gerton had proposed that the process of presenting, those delinquents that aren't going to school, when they get that paperwork, that they, are intimidated by that and it gets them back into school, and, he'd like to see that process sped up. So I was able to talk to, Miss Tipton, is that her?
Linda Tipton.
Linda Tipton, about that, and, appreciate the support group that EPAC is to the school system. I was really impressed with all the ways that they've been helping. On Friday, I did speak with Tom Carr, the director of the Washington-Baltimore High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area. He received notice from Congressman Harris's chief of staff. Kevin is his first name, I can't remember his last name. Apparently, he was actually a student of Mr. Carr's, so got that relationship. And, he let him know that, the letters of support have been received, and Congressman Harris is also sending his letter of support. Will do anything he can to help. The challenge right now are the effects of sequestration. $238.5 million fund the 28 HIDA regions across the country. Historically, $12 million was used for funding new areas, but the Office of National Drug Control Policy has reduced that amount to $3 million. 5 new HIDA areas are being proposed, and the LNDCP has agreed to allow discretionary funding towards the new counties. The committee to review new counties and how much funding they will receive is scheduled to meet in June or July, and Mr. Carr will serve on that committee. Now, Mr. Carr always felt that Cecil County should be a part of the HIDA region. So it looks, we're fairly certain that we will become part of the Washington-Baltimore HIDA. Yes, good news. We had our executive board meeting for the Upper Shore Regional Council. Cecil County is looking for a treasurer, and I did ask that Director Mason contact possibly our manager. Didn't realize that, she didn't contact you? Surprise. I recommended if you wanted to be a part of that. Alan, if you have the time, you can serve as well, so would like to see either one of you participate.
We have 2 council members that are on the board of directors for the Upper Shore Regional Council. You and Mike Dunn.
Yeah. Well,
Neither one of you are interested?
I'm very busy with the first vice chair, or the second vice chair. I'm
Mr. Dunn, are you interested in being the treasurer?
I didn't realize I was on the board. I think the last time we discussed that, I think it was gonna be between Alan and myself, and I guess I was
Okay.
appointed in absentia, I guess, which is fine, but.
Correct me if I'm wrong, who was it, Alan or?
I think maybe it was my, it happened so long ago. I didn't remember that was done, but I think it was you. So, would you be interested in the treasurer's position?
I'd have to see what is required.
You
Okay.
talked to him after the meeting? then?
Yes.
Is that anything else?
That was it.
Okay, Mr. Dunn, do you have any comments? Mr. McCarthy, do you have any comments?
Just this is just public information. Probably at their next legislative session, I will bring forth, at the request of Michael W. Dawson, an amendment to the flag and seal ordinance of Cecil County. It'll be Bill 2013-06. I will come before the council and ask that the original seal be turned back to Cecil County. The original historic seal was first used 339 years ago when Cecil County was proclaimed the 10th county in Maryland on June 6, 1674. The current seal, exhibiting mallard ducks, which we're familiar with, flying over water, though beautiful, is not the rightful seal. The seal was established by county commissioners in 1968 when they were unable to confirm the existence of an older or an original seal in Cecil County. This new seal was established 6 years prior to Cecil County's tricentennial anniversary, or its 300th birthday. In 1986, 18 years later, state archivists in Maryland established that the original seal did exist when the county was founded in 1674. The seal was based on the lesser seal of Lord Baltimore of England. Documents sent by Lord Baltimore to the Maryland colony bear the seal and therefore provide evidence and proof that the seal did exist. Was the first seal used, and hence the true and rightful seal of Cecil County. I now respectfully request your support for this bill to reestablish the lesser seal of Lord Baltimore as Cecil County's original and only seal. By doing this, we will set straight and correct the historic record of Cecil County. Thank you very much.
Councilman McCarthy, I'd like to see what the fiscal impact would be to change your seal. That would change your letterhead, it would change your flag. We have our seal up there, I'm not sure. And it'd be interesting to get feedback from the public. What does the seal look like? Do you have
Yes,
an image?
I do. I can address a number of your issues. Number one, if this were adopted, I would basically allow the stationery and all the signage we have to die a natural death, and when it needed to be replaced, just replace it. That's one thing we could do. Concerning the sign back there, I don't see this being of a huge amount of money.
Well, there's
Basically-
seals like that all over Maryland that represent Cecil County, so
Well,
it'd
they-
be interesting to see
Well,
how
I
far.
don't have an answer for that particular question right now. Here is a copy of what the seal might look like. It needs to be colored in. We would probably get someone who could do that properly and historically. And,
Mr. Massey, would you put this on an agenda item for the work session?
Do you know what the Latin words mean here?
Yes, I do.
Because it's manly deeds, worm.
It says right there on the bottom.
Oh, wait.
For the greater glory of God.
That's a state seal, isn't it?
No.
Manly deeds,
Oh,
wormly
no,
words.
that's the state song.
No, it's on the state seal too.
Okay, we'll have further discussion on this matter in the work session. Okay? We're gonna bring
This
it.
is a work session, is it not?
For this great,
This
do
is
you have
under-
problems with
Wait,
prayer?
No, I didn't have
Wait,
any
time
problem
out.
with prayer.
Hold it. Mr. McCarthy, this is not the time for debate, this is the time for your comments.
She asked for questions, and I was answering her question.
The appropriate time for that is during the work session, when you put it, next time, put it on the agenda.
I-
And wait. Put it on the agenda for an item specific to the seal of Cecil County, and then we can have discussion. During commissioner comments, it's not a discussion time, it's comment time. Okay, so you might want to discuss that with commissioners that are prepared. I don't want to go into debates and arguments and so forth and so on. It's not comment time. Comment time is for your comments without debate. So we will have further discussion on this legislation at our next meeting.
Well, I just wanted to say.
Well,
I
that's enough.
appreciate-
That's enough.
It's positive. I appreciate history, and I think, bringing this to our attention is positive.
Good, okay. Mr. McCarthy, do you have anything more?
No, I did not, Mr. President.
Okay, I just want to bring to the public's attention that on Wednesday, June 5th, 2013, from 5 to 8 o'clock at the Elk Neck Elementary School on Riesling School Road, there will be an open house for, by the Public Works Department for a workshop to present the capital improvement project for the Racine School Road improvements. The Public Works Department has in their capital improvement project list a project to improve Racine School Road. And so anyone that has any concerns or interest in that project should attend that workshop. Again, that's June 5th from 5 to 8. Was at a presentation that the Public Works Department did regarding Old Elk Neck Road, nowhere near the bridge. But I thought they did a really good job. And so anyone that has concerns or property in the neighborhood should go to this workshop. It is not a hearing, it is just giving a lot of information about how it's going to be done, what's the scope of the work, and usually there's a timeline associated for anyone that has an interest in Racine School Road. Also, the county is in receipt of a notice from the town of Northeast on an application for annexation. And I'll distribute this to everyone. I don't think it requires any action on behalf of the county unless we object. I don't think that the zoning is significantly different, or proposed zoning, the current and proposed, but I'll pass this out. I just got this today. This is on a property, I believe, north of the railroad tracks. This is not property that the planning commission reviewed south of town.
What is the purpose of the annexation?
Okay. If a town annexes a property out of the county and into the town, and the density is significantly different, then the town has to get permission from the county for the, if the town's zoning is higher density, correct me if I'm wrong, if the town's density is higher, then they either have to get our permission for the change in zoning, or the property owner has to wait, I think, 5 years before they can change the zoning. Generally, when there's an annexation that does not have any significant zoning consequences, there's no permission that we grant.
But what is the purpose for the annexation?
The property owner has decided that they want to receive the services that the town was willing to offer.
This is like sewer, maybe.
It could be, it's not sewer, because we, the county, provide sewer to the town of Northeast.
That's what I'm
But it
asking.
could be water. The answer is, it could be water, it could be water, it could be police services, it could be anything.
Do we have available sewer to serve this annexation?
I'd say yes. It doesn't matter, because if it's in the county or in the town, we serve sewer.
But what happens if there is no sewer infrastructure there?
The developer has to figure out how to get the sewer to their property.
I mean,
But this is probably more about water than sewer.
I kind of understood that. But the thing is, if sewer is necessary, then you have water. Now, what happens if the sewer is not in place?
That's not our.
That's up to the developer to figure it out, there's different options.
What happens if he has 10,000 hookups?
It doesn't matter whether they're annexing or not annexing.
Can I see that letter, please?
The fact is that the annexation has no requirement by the county or the town to provide hookups.
Well, the reality is, once they change the zoning or change their, if they become a part of the town of Northeast, and it doesn't significantly change their density, we wouldn't be considering this, right? I thought it only.
No, I think this is just a courtesy.
They're required to notify the county and state planning and adjoining jurisdictions.
Oh, I didn't realize.
It's just a notice.
But an annexation does not necessarily constitute a change in zoning, does it?
No.
It will be a change in zoning because they have their different.
Different
zone-
classifications.
Yes, it will be a difference, but it won't be necessarily be a difference in density.
And the county would have to grant a sewer allocation of, as the developer proceeds through the development process.
How long is that developer allocation good for? I think we talked about this.
Yeah,
It's
it was,
2 years?
it was reduced to 1 or 2 years, renewable.
I'd like to remind the council that at 1:30 today, we have a workshop that discusses the proposed employee manual changes. Donna Nichols, the Director of Human Resources, will be attending to answer any questions that you have about the proposed amendments. Also, at 3 o'clock, there's another workshop regarding the contract for sale of the real property in Elton on 214 North Street and the amendments that are proposed to that contract. So is there any further business? Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn our work session, please?
I move we adjourn the work session